With the rise of 3D printers and the ease of being able to order gun parts online, I'm told cops are seeing more and more of these privately made guns on the streets in the metro area. And that's concerning because you can make these ghost guns at home without having to undergo any background checks. He says it could increase gas prices by up to 30 cents in the next 2 years, but should significantly reduce emissions. And just yesterday, Riley's mom got some admissions materials in the mail from Vanderbilt. And she just told me it's just another heartbreaking reminder that Riley's potential was stolen from her. Deputies have showed up at her home, at her work, and every time the tips aren't real. It's gotten so bad, she's considered dropping out of high school and just getting her GED. This wild horse roundup using helicopters has drawn a lot of controversy from across the state. Now, some horse advocates say that's a waste of taxpayer dollars, but the BLM says it's a necessary expense. The health risks associated with exposure to radon gas are no longer going to be a worry for the dozens of families who live here in this Columbine Homes complex. We found Terrence isn't alone. I obtained several police reports over the last few years detailing all kinds of problems with rover sitters in the metro area. Not only was she sexually assaulted in the hallways of a place she once thought she was safe, she feels her school administration also failed to take it seriously. Hospitals across the state are near or at capacity, and they're in need of more help. Thankfully, I'm told one UC Health hospital is getting a lending hand from our nation's military. Karen, you know, these small little drones, they don't look like much, but I'm told they can be some really powerful tools in all kinds of situations, from SWAT calls to missing persons cases, or even traffic accidents. Now, it is important to note that researchers with Denver Health say that air pollution is not the only risk factor. I asked the Department of Labor why staff would just now be looking at paperwork faxed to them in late December. They emailed me this written statement admitting that the unprecedented number of claims has caused a backlog. The bill will also require more training for assisted living operators. Signing the bill today, Governor Polis released a statement that reads in part, "This bill takes steps towards increasing accountability, oversight, and compliance within the assisted living industry." The department also advises it's important to be cautious of suspicious texts or calls claiming to be from the Department of Labor, as these are methods that fraudsters are using to trick claimants into giving up personal information. Now I'm finding people across the country and here in the Mile High City are worried about how the company may have gotten rich at the expense of putting the public at risk. Why did you say that at the time, and do you still feel like your department has not identified actual solutions?
There were places where we misstepped.
Some people have even been on the brink of suicide as a result of issues with your department. When you hear that, what's your response?
I think as a department, we need to listen.
What would you say to critics who feel like the horses may be mistreated here?
I have 2 vet reports.
If it were up to you, would you live in one of those units?
If it was the housing that was available to me, absolutely.
What was going through your mind?
I just told myself, I was like, don't die.
Older Coloradans in need of care, abused, neglected. CBS 4 investigator Kati Weis uncovers the issues.
How could this happen?
Demanding change.
Your reporting brought to my attention facilities that are profiting off of the abuse and neglect of older Coloradans.
Now, our state's lawmakers taking action.
They really didn't think it was possible until we got involved.
Because of you and Channel 4.
Original reporting.
Now we're in a home
that gets results.
Suncor has 90 days to respond to this letter. We'll be sure to let you know what happens. Reporting live in Commerce City, I'm Kati Weis, covering Colorado First. Now, the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office is hoping to update its arsenal with some new fancy drones that could even shatter glass during a SWAT call type situation and could even communicate with a suspect who may be barricading themselves inside a home. Reporting live in Arapahoe County, I'm Kati Weis, covering Colorado First.
For the first time since the tragic STEM school shooting, we've obtained deputy body camera video from that day. More than 3 years later, Colorado continues to remember student Kendrick Castillo, who died while trying to defend his classmates. The sheriff says they are still using police response video as a roadmap for officer preparedness. CBS 4 investigator Kati Weis with this exclusive story tonight. Now that the shooters in this case have both been sentenced to life in prison, we've obtained body camera video clips from 2 responding deputies that day. The clips are 30 minutes each of those deputies' initial entry to the school when the shots first broke out. They show how the school was locked down so well that even law enforcement couldn't get in at first, something the sheriff tells me is a major lesson learned.
For all units, we have a shooter in room 107.
May 7th, 2019.
Shots fired.
Douglas County Sheriff's deputies get the call for an active shooter at STEM school Highlands Ranch.
School is locked down.
2 students had just opened fire inside classroom 107. 18-year-old Kendra Castillo shot dead trying to defend his classmates. 8 others injured. Each door deputies approached was locked, forcing deputies to break their way in.
When I see these videos, I get very anxious because I know that every second counts.
But Douglas County Sheriff Tony Spurlock tells me somehow, as if by divine intervention, the door closest to the shooting was the only door open, allowing those officers to get in fast and detain the shooters.
That entrance was within 25 feet of where the shooting took place. Yeah.
Wow.
It's an emergency egress door, really. It's not a door that is designed for kids to come to and fro.
So it may have been a stroke of luck that door was open at that point.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. We were lucky to be able to get into that one door that was open, and that made a huge difference for us.
The body camera video we obtained shows other deputies responding to help those detectives. One deputy breaking a glass front door with a baton, then using chopping equipment to break the lock of a second, larger wooden door in the foyer. Another deputy's camera shows a group of law enforcement standing outside around the corner, seemingly unsure of how to proceed. The deputy helps them break the glass door to enter. From there, they move from hallway to hallway, making sure the area is safe, helping students hiding in bathrooms and classrooms.
This way.
Since then, Sheriff Spurlock tells me his office worked with the school system to get more access key cards that work at all school buildings in the district. And he's beefed up school shooter training for his deputies.
I can replace all the windows in every school in this district. I can't replace any kids. And so when you get there and you know it's a situation, just start breaking stuff.
The sheriff says he's also collaborated more with the school district, even giving school principals radios to communicate with deputies.
And can say, don't go that way. It's the wrong way. You know, guide us.
Advising the shooters in the hallway.
The sheriff says he's ready in case a call like this ever goes out again.
We are very well suited right now based upon training and equipment and resources. I hope and pray every day we never have to use them.
There are several resources for students, parents, and school staff alike to report anything they feel might be a safety concern at school, so you can stop potential violence before it starts. We put that information on our website, cbscolorado.com.
Now with a story you'll see only on CBS 4, community still hurting following the death of a 17-year-old who impacted so many people's lives.
Riley Whitelaw was killed this summer working at a Walgreens in Colorado Springs. Prosecutors say her co-worker, 28-year-old Joshua Johnson, stabbed her to death in the break room while the store was open. Johnson now in jail without bond. Police say Riley had complained to the management about Johnson before, asking to work different shifts than he was, but she was allegedly made to work with him anyway. Tonight, CBS 4 investigator Kati Weis talking exclusively with Riley's mom. She was so proud of her daughter.
Her mom wants her to be remembered as the inspiration that she was to her community, not by how she was taken from it. So tonight we're giving you a personal look at Riley's life, and we hope to honor her memory with this story.
That's little Riley.
This is 17-year-old Riley Whitelaw. Her mother, Courtney, tells me she was a straight-A student in all subjects, interested in studying genetics in college. She was also artistic. She loved to draw, play guitar, and danced in the color guard for her school's marching band. Even selected to be the team's co-captain this year.
Anything Riley ever has taken on, she's always got both feet in.
But her mom says above all that, she was caring.
Riley was a kind, loving, empathetic human being, and I've told her classmates, please carry that forward in honor of her, and that we need more Rileys in the world.
Riley was going to be a senior this year at Air Academy High School in Colorado Springs. She had been working a part-time job at this Walgreens for almost a year and a half when her vibrant life was cut short on June 11th. Her body discovered by management in the store's break room.
And I hope Riley gets justice. She deserves that. I just want her back, and I don't get her back. And you never plan on burying your child. And so it's hard because you feel like you're just reliving it. Like I feel like I'm in Groundhog's Day a lot.
Since that tragic day, Courtney has received several letters from her daughter's customers and community members she's never even met, telling her what an impact Riley made in their lives.
I've gotten letters from customers that maybe just had a brief encounter, but a meaningful encounter with Riley. I even had a woman that had a painting. The proceeds that she made from the painting, she donated it to the Bemis Art School in Riley's honor. And then she brought me like a print of it, and she just said, your daughter really touched me. You know, and I just had that one conversation with her.
Sounds like she touched so many lives.
Yeah. You know, and as a parent, like, I'm proud of that. Because how many 17-year-olds have that much of an imprint on people this early?
Riley's also left a mark for her mother, with one of Riley's drawings meaning so much more now than her mom ever imagined.
Riley was determined to have a tattoo, and for 2 years she kept asking, and I kept saying no. And she came to me one night and said, how about we get a tattoo together? And she had drawn it, and this is what it was, and we did this in December. And it's kind of her gift for me forever.
Now Riley's family is setting up a scholarship fund in her memory, with the goal of someone in her graduating class to be the first recipient.
I get up and out of bed because Riley would expect it of me. And so every breath I take is very much for Riley, and trying to make her proud, and trying to make sure that she's not forgotten in all of this, and that she made an impact and will continue to make an impact.
Now, Walgreens sent us a written statement that says they are, quote, deeply saddened and horrified by this crime, and they are conducting a thorough internal review and supporting team members during this difficult time. Jim?
Oh, boy, and you just told me that that was Riley playing the guitar we heard at the end of the...
Yes, so that music in the package that you just heard, that was actually Riley playing.
Oh, boy. So tell me some of the other ways the communities, we see the letters of condolence. What about other ways the community's remembering?
Absolutely. Well, Riley loved to walk and spend time outside, and she even volunteered at the Humane Society walking dogs. So her neighborhood is actually installing a bench in her neighborhood in her name, so that way other people can go and relax outside as well.
And certainly her spirit will live on, I would guess, in the scholarship fund.
Oh, absolutely. Her family has officially created a nonprofit. They're calling it the Riley I. Whitelaw Memorial Scholarship Fund. And if you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can. We put a link to it on our website. That's cbscolorado.com.
She was an only child.
Yes, she was. Really hard on her mom.
Oh, boy, you can tell on all of us. Yeah. Thanks.
Wild Mustangs, they're a bold symbol of the American West. Well, this year, the federal government has been removing more than 13,000 wild horses and donkeys from 9 different states. But those roundups have been met with backlash. Kati Weis of CBS station KCNC in Denver has tonight's Weekend Journal.
Hey, y'all, you want some clean water?
At a prison ranch in southern Colorado, inmates David Jackson and Alex Cockrell spend their days caring for these once wild horses.
It is pretty dang rewarding.
The Mustang's path to this pasture is not without controversy. A few months ago, these horses lived free on public land in Colorado, but the state's wild horse specialist, Steve Leonard, says there are too many horses for the land to support.
We still had this lack of forage for our wintering areas. I don't believe the horses would survive the winter.
This fall, the Bureau of Land Management rounded up more than 700 horses in the state for relocation. Critics of the roundups push for birth control instead of that relocation.
It's never easy to see entire families and, I mean, really generations of horses that are no longer going to be on the range.
Even Colorado's governor asked for a 6-month moratorium of the roundups. But in the end, the BLM went through with its plan, bringing hundreds of horses to this prison complex in Canyon City, Colorado, to prep them for adoption.
The adoption prep includes giving them an equine infectious anemia test.
The prison holds more than 2,000 wild horses, and much like the roundups, the living conditions here face harsh criticism.
I was horrified.
Carol Walker, a wild horse photographer who has adopted 3 Mustangs, attended a prison adoption event this summer.
I was shocked. There was mud, muck, and urine like ankle deep. There was not much hay. And when I went to the yearling pen, half of them were skin and bones.
What would you say to critics who feel like the horses may be mistreated here?
I have 2 vet reports within the last 30 days to say that the horses are treated quite well here. We have the expected amount body condition on the horses. Feed conditions are right. The pens are correct. I'll let the vet report speak for itself.
Advocates want to see for themselves, but COVID has curtailed adoption events from more than a dozen to only 3 this year. Horses that aren't adopted will go to long-term holding ranches, but advocates question the conditions of those facilities too.
Carol would like to see more adoption events at the Canyon City facility. She says she knows of hundreds of people who would be willing to adopt horses like Helios, who she just adopted from the Canyon City facility back in August.
There are people who want these horses and are not being allowed to have them, which is insane.
The BLM says more adoption events will be held starting February. Until then, it's not just the horses that are being prepped for a better future. So are David and Alex, feeling more confident about life on the outside.
I feel very fortunate, almost a stroke of luck, you know. I never thought I'd even have an opportunity like this.
Kati Weis, CBS News, Canyon City, Colorado.
The news starts now.
Safe to Tell is a system young people can use to report dangerous problems. But tonight we are learning about some people who are using it as a weapon.
They're making false reports to harass and bully, and laws in place to crack down on that might not be working. Overall, Safe to Tell is a success. Over the past 3 years, the program here in Colorado has received more than 54,000 reports. More than 800 have been about plans for school attacks. Most reports are for suicide threats, welfare checks, drugs, and cyberbullying.
CBS 4 investigator Kati Weis joins us now. And Kati, while the program does save lives, you talked with one teen who says some people are actually using this program to make her life pretty difficult.
Absolutely. Bullies at her school have called in dozens of fake Safe to Tell tips against her. Countless times she's been pulled out of her class, had her locker searched. Deputies have showed up at her home, at her work, and every time the tips aren't real. It's gotten so bad she's considered dropping out of high school and just getting her GED.
Really embarrassing and really frustrating.
Passion Burke is a senior at Columbine High School. She tells me her high school experience has been far from normal. People have been bullying her anonymously by calling in fake Safe to Tell tips.
In the beginning of my freshman year, we got a lot of them, mainly about just like self-harm and stuff like that, and then it just progressively got worse.
She says the tips also alleged she used and sold drugs, causing Jefferson County Sheriff's deputies to show up at her house at all hours, most recently this July.
It's been horrifying.
Jacqueline Oliver is her grandmother and guardian.
Academically, she's suffering. She's suffering mentally. She just went through some more counseling again.
Safe to Tell is an anonymous reporting system set up after the Columbine High School shooting. It's a system praised for its capacity to help stop violence before it starts. Out of more than 19,000 reports made from August of last year to July of this year, only 2% were false. That's about 387 fake reports. And the school year before that, only 1.7% of the more than 11,000 reports were false, meaning thousands of people were helped, but still there have been potentially hundreds of students facing bullying situations like Burke's.
When it happens, that's where you want to nip it in the bud.
Susan Payne founded Safe to Tell and now works with the Center for the Study and Prevention of Violence. She's helping other states set up similar reporting systems. She tells me when Safe to Tell is used maliciously, the school and local law enforcement can come up with plans to respond to future tips against that particular student in a more sensitive way.
There's a lot of wonderful stories where they did put a bubble around a student, and that's what you really want with the response, is a caring, committed response with empathy and kindness. And I think that's what has to be communicated so that if it does happen again, everybody's ready to respond.
She also says a law passed just last year in Colorado gives law enforcement more power to track down false reporters.
It's anonymous because the law says it's anonymous. The technology in the system allows us to pull back the onion and see if there's anything there.
But in Burke's case, the Jeffco Sheriff's Office tells us they weren't able to track down the culprits. Burke and her grandmother feel the law isn't working.
I've gone to my counselors several times and see if there was any way that I wouldn't have to at least be pulled out of class because it was causing me to fall behind a lot. And I got just told that there wasn't really anything that anyone could do.
Do you believe that?
Not really, no.
What do you think they should do?
I mean, after a while, I feel like it should be able to be stopped, especially if I'm being searched and you're still not finding anything. So at least not pull me out of class, or at least not searching me all the time.
They believe the law should have better mechanisms to crack down on false reporters.
It needs to just stop. Leave my granddaughter alone. I'm tired of watching her cry. I'm tired of watching her hurt. And then nobody's helping us. That's the hard part.
Now, the Jeffco Sheriff's Office declined an interview for this story, but tells us it's important to respond quickly to every tip, regardless of a pattern of fake tips, because at any time it could be real and could mean the difference of life or death. The Jeffco School District declined to comment for this story also and referred us to the State Attorney General, which manages Safe to Tell. And the AG's office also declined an interview with us, but they tell us in a written statement that they encourage legitimate reports and that they educate students that placing false reports is illegal.
Well, an imperfect system, but it's doing a lot of good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Katie, thank you.
It is a common problem in homes all throughout Colorado. Roughly half have had radon levels higher than what's considered safe. It's an easy fix with a mitigation system that removes that gas. But not everyone enjoys that safety net. In fact, some people don't even know that radon is in their homes.
That's because there is no requirement for publicly subsidized housing to be tested and mitigated. CBS 4 investigator Kati Weis has spent months looking into the issue. You had testing done in several of the units. What'd you find?
Oh, well, Jim and Karen, we tested 5 different units, and 2 of them had radon levels twice the EPA's safe limit.
The enemy is what's coming out from the earth.
Maria Chacon is a retired waitress who's lived in her 1-bedroom public housing unit for the last 12 years. Her unit in the Columbine Homes complex is one of nearly 4,000 public housing units in the city of Denver. But there's no law requiring subsidized units to be tested and mitigated for radon, which could put the thousands of people who live in those units at risk. So we tested for them, putting sensors in 5 public housing units across Denver. In Chacon's home, we found a level more than 2 times higher than the EPA's recommended limit.
That means she is exposed to a significant health risk. Radon exposure is the #1 source of lung cancer in people who have never smoked.
Tony Sutherland with Area 5280 Home Inspections conducted the testing.
This year, radon will kill 20,000 people in the United States.
The radon measurement specialist found 2 units we tested were far below the EPA's limit. 1 was just under the EPA's limit, and 2 were twice the limit.
I'm actually a little bit angry that for so long people have lived under these conditions and there hasn't been a flag.
We showed Chacon our results.
It's very dangerous, but I don't have too many options at my age.
We wanted to find out what her options really are. So we took our results to the owner of Denver's public housing complexes, the Denver Housing Authority.
We're contracting with a third-party professional.
Executive Director Ismael Guerrero says the authority recognizes the threat and is working with a private company to determine the best solution.
We're going to be getting to all the units in our portfolio. As I said, we're doing it as quickly as we can.
DHA has tested and mitigated some of the public housing units it owns as it remodels old buildings, but not all of them. If it were up to you, would you live in one of those units?
If it was the housing that was available to me, absolutely, and I would make sure I'm educated, on what steps I could do.
Chacon, who suffers from asthma, tells me she believes there should be a change in the law to require radon testing and mitigation in all subsidized housing units. Until then, she's forced to take her chances on her health just by staying in her own home.
It's great that I don't have cancer yet. It's a blessing.
And for the first time, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, is requesting $5 million for radon testing in its upcoming budget. But DHA tells me HUD is cutting its budget in other areas that helps with the upkeep of DHA's buildings. HUD declined an on-camera interview, but said in a written statement that Secretary Ben Carson, quote, takes this issue seriously.
Well, that's great to see. They should.
Yes, absolutely. It's a serious health crisis.
Very.
Yeah, thank you, Katie.